Welcome to machine learning. Feature selection, we're going to look at predictive performance this time. So we've looked at two approaches so far. We've looked at p-values and lasso. There's lots of other methods that you should learn about. Forward, backward selection, AIC and BIC search, posterior feature probabilities, which is a Bayesian approach. There's also LIME. However, for most purposes, when models are easy to fit, then predictive performance on a holdout sample usually wins because it's telling you how well it predicts. And how well these features predict versus the other ones are more fit-oriented. How well do these features fit the data? Okay, so it's a little bit of different thought, but from a machine learning standpoint, if our goal is predictive performance and how well we can predict using our data, that's what we want to focus on. Okay, so we're going to need data splitting again. And the other models, or the other techniques, we didn't split the model really. I mean, we could have split the model and tried it, but we didn't because there's lots of issues with doing that. But for models where all the parameters are estimated by the algorithm, training and validation sets are good enough. Like simple linear regression or linear regression. All the parameters are estimated by the algorithm. However, if you're doing something with classification, maybe there's a tuning parameter in there that you need. For models where some parameters are outside of the model, training, test, and validation sets are good. And some people would argue for predictive performance, where we're taking variables in and out of the model, then maybe we should do these three sets. That could be argued one way or the other. I think it's probably easier just to do training and validation on it. If possible, if you can do k-fold cross-validation, which we talked about before, that would be even better. However, you have to remember that you have to fit lots of models. And if you're going to do k-fold cross-validation, you're going to have to fit lots of models. And if they take a long time to fit, k-fold cross-validation might be time consuming, and maybe you would only want to do that when you get closer to the sort of set of features that you really think are worthwhile to keep, instead of doing it through the whole thing, because that's going to be a lot of computation that maybe you don't want to do. And then for categorical variables, we want to ensure that the sets, whether they're validation, training, or test sets, or we want to weight them in the same terms of the outcome variable. Okay, one predictive performance measure we didn't look at yet is this idea of F1. For continuous variables, predictive R squared, most people say that wins. You could use MSE, you might hear some other metrics or whatever, but predictive R squared is just really, really good. And it's hard to beat in terms of it's easy to understand, you get nice pictures, predictive performance pictures. It's just easy. Now, for categorical variables, there's this problem that you have accuracy rate, you have specificity, sensitivity, and which one do you choose? And that one becomes a little more difficult because there's this balance in there. So F1 is this one metric that we didn't look at, that some people look at, which is the geometric or harmonic mean of precision and recall. So precision and recall are defined down here. True positives plus anything that said it was positive, whether it was true or false. And recall is the true positives over the true positives and the false negatives. So anytime you said it was true. So you take the harmonic mean of these, and this will give you a number, and then you can do work based off of this. Me personally, if your idea is really sensitivity and specificity, then use one of those. If your goal is accuracy, then use one of those. But some people like this, and you can run one of them if you want. I'm just showing it to you here so that you're sure that it's not left out. All right, so now remember, we have lots of features to search through. There are 2 to the p possible feature combinations if we just add them in, not talking about interactions between them. Just put the variables in by themselves. There are 2 to the p possible feature combinations. And once you get lots of variables, you're looking at an extremely difficult search process because, if you if you look at this, just do what if P were 1,000? You'll quickly realize that the number of feature combinations is more than the number of particles that there are, molecules that there are, or atoms or whatever, there are in the universe, the known universe. So you'll never calculate all of them. So you can't do all of them. So I'm going to talk about some, I'll show you some structured, and then we'll look at maybe ranking p-values just to start. Okay, we're going to start there, or get a map of where to start. So you could run a full model that has everything in it, rank the t-values for each feature, and then start removing the features with the smallest t-values working towards the largest t-values. Now, you probably want to standardize your data in this sense, but that way everything's sort of on the same scale. The t-value really won't change, but if you look at the coefficients, you can kind of get an idea of, wow, that's close to 0, probably not useful. You could also rank the p-values, okay, and start with the largest p-values and then work towards the smallest ones until your predicted performance degrades. Remember, when you throw everything in there, the predicted performance will be as high as it possibly can. But when you start dropping things out, the predicted performance will start going down. But the goal here is, if your goal is just to have it be the best it can possibly be, throwing it all in there will work. But that costs money and time in terms of computation. So if you're trying to whittle it down, maybe you're willing to start or tolerate a little bit of reduction in your metric at the end. Another approach is random. So start at a random model and randomly move through the model space, adding or dropping values if it improves the predicted performance. This is quite complicated and will take a considerable amount of time to run. The interesting thing about it is it can find combinations that you never thought of, because the other ones, you're ranking them. Once you've tossed it out, it's out. This one will add them in, drop them back out, drop them back in until it finds one that's the best. And you can also do some sort of penalty on these too if there's too many. And that would be looking at it from an AIC or a BIC value. But here we're paying attention to predictive performance, which is how well it predicts. All right, so we're going to still look at the Boston housing data because we've been working with it, and we can look at some of the models we came up with from there. So let's jump over to Python now. All right, so we've made it to Python. Our libraries that we're going to use is pandas again, stats model, because here we're just going to use linear regression. We're going to need the model selection so that we can train, test, split from sklearn. We're going to get sklearn metrics, R² score, or R2 score. And then we're just going to do like we did before. We're going to read in the data. Remember, the data had NAs in it, so we're going to drop them out. We're going to select the columns that we want for our outcome variable, which is median value, and our X variable is all the other variables. Remember, we're going to search through these. So let's do this right now. Oh, wait a minute. I'm going to make a mistake. Just like I told you all before, always make sure that your directory over here is pointed at where the data set is, okay? And you can do this with code, you can do it in other places, but always make sure that works or else this is going to blow up on you and you will be very unhappy trying to figure out why did it do that. Okay, I've ran everything, it read everything in for me. I'm good to go there. That's exactly what we had before, so I shouldn't really have to explain it too much, assuming that you watched the last video. This one's going to break us up into our train test data sets, and I'm going to do a 70% train size on this. So I'm going to run this. My random state is 8, and if you want to know why, is because when I'm recording this, this is April 8th. So I just pick 8 because it's the date. So I'm going to run this, and it'll split up everything for me. Now, here I have this block here. It says variables of interest. Now, I purposely wrote them out once because I'm going to have to use them twice against here. But what the goal is you put in here all the variables you think you want in the model. Then the rest of it will go and give you the R² score. Because remember, we have a training test and a test set that we have to work upon. And so they need to have the same columns in them in order for this to work. So just keep that in mind. They both have to have the same set of columns, and that's what this var interest is. This is the variables of interest. So this is where I'm going to put the column names of what I'm interested in. Then I'm going to make sure that those variables of interest are pulled out from my training set and pulled out for my test set so that I can train on it and test on it. So that's what this does here, and we will be changing this later to see how things change. So let's run this here real quick. And we should get, okay, everything worked. Now this is where we're going to fit the model. And here we have xtrain sub, and sub means subset. Xtest sub, we're going to have to use it. So for our training set, we're going to have to add the constant on because we're using the stats model API. So just remember that you're going to have to add the constant on. We're going to run the model, fit the model here, and then we are going to set up our test set here. Remember, our test set doesn't have that column of ones or the constant, so we need to add it here, and then we can predict with it. So that's what we're going to do here. And that will generate our predictions, and notice we're not looking at them. And right here is the R-square score. So I'm going to run this, and it's going to give me R-squared for those variables. And I know this is super tiny. You can't see it, I can't see it. So I'm going to copy and paste it over here. But notice I made a block here for my first model, and these are the variables that are in it. Okay, so this is the number here, and now you can actually read it. We have a R-squared of about, predictive R-squared of about 0.71, which is pretty good. Now, when we were playing around in Lasso, we noticed that there was one where only two variables were significant. So that's what this is, and I'm just going to copy and paste it up here. Okay, so that I can go through this again and see which model is better, because and which features are better. So I'm going to use this. I'm going to run it all again down to R-squared because it should work fine. And notice I'm going to get a smaller R-squared here. Okay. Now, so you can see what the value is there. It dropped considerably down to 0.65, but if you think about it, it didn't drop that far given how many variables are in the models. So what you might want to do is, now I didn't do the ranking version where you could do the model summary, but what I want to say is you can start adding some of these variables in. One of the models that we had, I think B was something that was interesting, or it thought was interesting. So we can add BM. I'm going to take here and I'm going to copy and paste this before I run it. So I'm going to have a third model down here that I'm going to run. And you can just start adding variables to it so that you can keep track of what's going on. So I added a variable in. Gonna run it, gonna get R-squared score, see how good it is. Okay, so it should have made it go up, because it always should go up. Even though it is predictive, the regular R-squared will always go up, but this is a predictive R-squared, and it went up a little bit. What was one of the other ones that was interesting, I think, was, what was it? One of these, I can go over here and look. Criminality, no. Industrial, no. Chaz, no. Whatever the other one there was with N. And if you don't remember, you just open it up. Knox, we can add it. Age was not there. But let's add Knox on there and see if it improves the model. And remember, you don't have to put them in the same order. It'll figure it out. So again, I'm going to copy and paste this down so that I can see which ones or what the effect is of adding this to a fourth model. And this, you can see this is going to take some time to do, by the way. You can program it to automatically go through in some specific order if you want. Here, I'm not worried about that. I'm trying to get you to understand the idea of what we're doing is we are comparing the feature set on how well it predicts. So this one, we added this in. Did it predict any better? So I put it over here. And actually, it only predicts just a little bit better than the last one. Do we want to keep it around? That's totally up to you. Because remember, we do know that some of these other variables might work, and you can try different combinations of those. And that's the whole point here is you can search through this predictive or feature space by putting various things in and seeing what happens and seeing how well you can get the model if it's a small model. But there's going to be at some point where everything just sort of just falls apart. Okay, and when you find that, that's probably the model size that you want, is the one where it's almost as good as the full model, and then it starts degrading, and you say, okay, that's where the drop-off is, that's what the model that I want to have. But that's for you to work out on your own because you have different needs, and depending on how long it takes to use the model. Okay, so next time we are going to start looking at artificial neural networks. So be ready for that. A lot of people don't like that this is at the end of the course because that's what they think the course should be about. But here, the name is Machine Learning and Artificial Intelligence. So we're doing the machine learning part first, and we're going to talk about artificial neural networks. Are you going to be an expert at artificial neural networks and deep learning? No. But will you be a complete novice? No. So this will get you going, and then you can start learning how to do some of these things on your own so that you can not rely on somebody else's model. You can start training your own. And so we'll work on that next time, and I will see you there.